You know how when you're in the shower, you start thinking of the most random things, like how did people discover that you can milk almonds and how many holes are there on a Skyflakes cracker? Or maybe just a classic existential crisis. With me, sometimes it's about games I've played at some point in my life, and that thought is usually enough to make me Google it straight after getting out of the bathroom, only to find out that it's no longer available. This doesn't happen every time, but it happened often enough that it warrants a series on this channel, which I'll be calling Lost to Time. On this series, I'll be talking about video games that are either no longer playable because it's no longer available on its original source, has become outdated, or just can't be accessed anymore because the developers either pulled it out or never updated it, difficult to get a hold of unless you have a large sum of money, some internet knowledge on getting certain things to work, or places to get it with a large risk of getting viruses, trojans, and getting mugged. I don't know how these people find their things. Because I can't obtain these games or make them work, I will mostly rely on other people's gameplay videos and screenshots to show them to you while I talk about them and my experiences with them. For this first episode, I'll be talking about the game that was only released on the iPhone and iPad and is now completely gone from the App Store. Not only that, the developer's website itself can no longer be accessed. It's like they never existed. But thankfully, I found 3 channels that had videos of its gameplay, and the Wayback Machine was helpful enough to show me the old website. This game was one of my most played mobile games, and I remember spending way too much time in the toilet because of it, and that game is called Pixely People Making Movies. Released by Nekomata Games on June 4th, 2012, the game is a unique twist to the conventional time management game that are usually themed around food and played in top view. Pixely People Making Movies features a side view perspective of a building divided by 4 differently colored floors for filming, creating visual effects, sound, and editing. The game starts with a short story about a boy who had a dear aunt who supported his dream of making movies. When she passed away, she leaves him with a movie studio where the boy promises to make the greatest movie of all time. You are then greeted by a cat that tells you all you need to know about how to play the game. In the beginning, you have 4 employees which you pick up and drop to different floors over the course of 3 minutes and 14 seconds. The total game time for each round. While your employees pace the floor, the progress bar moves along. Once it reaches the end, it will fill up a chunk of the canister. Depending on the number to the left side of the floor, the canister will continue filling up with chunks before moving on to the next floor. You can fill up the canister with up to 5 chunks from each floor. The score you earn for each chunk will depend on the base multiplier for the floor, found on the right side. Ideally, you'd want to only have 1 chunk for the ones with low multipliers and multiple chunks for high multipliers. Chunks is a weird word. There is no limit to how many chunks each canister can take, but each floor can have up to 6 canisters at a time. If the floor is full, the canisters from the other floors won't be able to move down. It's also important to note that the points for a canister will not be registered until it passes the editing floor. Can't have a movie with unedited footage after all. The best strategy for this is to put all your employees at the top floor at the start and make as many canisters as you can, then gradually assign them to the other floors as the canisters descend. When you're down to the last minute or last few seconds, you'll need to stop putting your employees at the top floor and focus on finishing up the remaining canisters to make sure they reach the bottom. Before a round of movie making starts, you need to fill out a movie proposal form. You can choose the theme and genre of your movie. Each has different costs, difficulty, and base multiplier for each floor. The higher the difficulty, the higher the score you have to reach to break even. For the theme, you can initially choose between indie, pirate, space, and zombie, while other themes are unlocked once you fulfill certain requirements like making a pirate comedy movie with 4 stars and up, and a zombie action movie with 2 stars and up. Some of the unlockable themes that I found with the help of the Wayback Machine and their website's press kit were dance and monster. From my memory, I think the last theme you unlock is literally called the greatest movie of all time. The genre, however, is pretty set at action, drama, romance, comedy, and horror, and doesn't seem to have any other unlockables. I also noticed that the names of the characters and the costumes you see the actors wearing on the film floor change according to the theme you chose, while the background and music changes according to the genre you picked. Among all of these themes, indie films are the cheapest to make at only $5,000 and will be the genre you'll probably do the most of as a beginner when you don't have much funds yet. On the other hand, romance is the cheapest genre at $38,800. If I remember correctly, I think there was a penalty to doing the same genre and theme combination in a row, so you'll need to at least change the genre for every round. I think you had to hit a higher score if you repeated it, but I'm not quite sure. At the very top of the form is the title, which you can customize. But if you're having a hard time thinking of a good name, their team of highly trained title consultants can suggest some hard-hitting bangers such as Brain Cemetery, Plague of Night, Brain of Night, Hour of the Brain, Brain in the Dark, Dying Survivors, and many more. Aside from this, you also need to spend money for talents and your employees' salaries. You can only have 3 actors or actresses in one movie, and each one has a set contract fee and a max aura count. While playing the game, an employee may suddenly get struck by inspiration and start glowing a certain color. This glow is the aura that the form is referring to. If you bring your employee to the floor of the same color, the base multiplier will increase by 10. The max aura count is basically how many times your employees can get inspired to work at a certain floor before the bonus base multiplier fades off. The first 4 options of actors and actresses are up and coming and have pretty low and affordable fees, but they can only give you 1 aura on 1 floor. We've got Sivir Milani, who is famous for her rapping skills, but few people know that she actually prefers growling. I guess that's why she has a sound aura. For some reason, that rapping part made me think of Mary J. Blige, but the pixel art made me think of J-Lo. I don't know. Do they like growling? Next, we have Flippy Spandex, who was born in a barn but has never seen a cow. Favorite color? Neon black. Kind of reminds me of Bruce Willis for some reason. Then we've got Nick Hines, who is basically Morgan Freeman, except that fee is way too low for him. He has a large collection of old cars and is planning to start a collection of old roads? Is he like gonna scrape it off the ground and put it in his garage or something? We've got Freya Frid, who tackles every role with stunning professionalism because of her classical training. What is that ouch for? She's giving me Jennifer Aniston vibes. The more expensive actors have auras on multiple floors. We've got Wix Lindo, who has won every actor award there is, but is suspiciously underpaid because this guy isn't even the one with the highest contract fee in the game. Then again, they did say that he's difficult to work with, so that's probably why. Also, it took me years before I realized that if you change the initials on this name, it actually reads Licks Window. Next, we have Tomato Celery, which is just Tom Selleck. Women want him, and men want to be him. Dolphins like to watch him swim. I'm not too familiar with Tom Selleck's work, but I saw him in Friends, and I gotta say, he makes mustaches look cool. Then we've got Angelica Stork, which is basically just Angelina Jolie, I think. And she likes to reenact current events in her spare time. Okay. After that, we've got Frank James, which is just James Franco, and he will sometimes visit a grave at night when the night winds wail and not shed a tear. That's a very weird hobby, Mr. James. The most expensive ones have 3 auras and 2 floors. We've got Dreamy Dan, who's got a heck of talent. I have no idea who this is, but the hair is giving me 2010 Justin Bieber. And we've also got Evangeline, who is totally not a vampire, but you can't have mirrors or garlic on set. She just doesn't like it. But if you like this video, clickety-click that like button. Yeah! Depending on which actors or actresses you pick, they will appear on the film floor wearing the costumes that are associated with the theme, and they will also appear in the sound floor and the final movie poster, which I thought was a pretty cool detail. In the trailer, there was a bit of a hint that the costumes were supposed to be customizable, but it was probably either too difficult or too tedious to code, or was just scrapped because they wanted to simplify things. Either way, I didn't really mind it as much since I was more focused on the gameplay. As for the worker salaries, they're fixed at $5,289 at the start when you only have 4 employees. This will gradually increase as you add more members to your staff. These new workers have to be unlocked, and if I recall correctly, they will apply to your movie studio once you get a certain amount of money on hand. Each employee has a green and blue bar above them which represents energy and experience points. Once the green bar empties, the employee falls asleep for 17 seconds. After their nap, they'll wake up refreshed with a full bar of energy. Once the blue bar gets full, the employee levels up and gets 3 points that you can use to increase the chances or improve the good trait or decrease the chances or negative effects of a bad trait. Good traits will help speed up your work, while bad traits will derail it. Good traits also always have a higher chance to trigger than bad traits. But who are these workers? I'm so glad you asked. Even though you didn't. Biff Oslo is a director who was once the #1 guy in gardening and grew flowers like nobody's business. But now he's out to get you. Are we sure this guy isn't a serial killer? His good trait is Lucky, which creates a super chunk that's twice as much as a regular chunk. His bad trait is Cursed, which makes him do many mistakes that makes the progress bar regress and subtracts the work that had already been made. Thankfully, this doesn't affect chunks that are already in canisters. You can counter this by having workers on the same floor to neutralize his damage or add 2 so that it would still move, but at the cost of manpower. The best approach would be to leave him on a floor that has low base multiplier and just wait for the effect to wear off. It'll still reverse some progress, but at least it isn't on a floor that could potentially give you a lot of points. Tommy Gogo is an FX artist who has the current world record for building a house while upside down and wearing a wetsuit. Favorite car? Yes. I am so confused. His good trait is Lucky and his bad trait is Angry, which makes him unproductive, halting any progress he can contribute. The worst part about this bad trait is he can infect other people he passes, which can in turn infect other people they pass. The only way to counter this is to isolate the angry people and keep them away from non-angry people until they calm down. Ruder Peterson is a sound editor who is a former expert in martial arts and is good to have around when the coffee machine is just being weird. His favorite color? Pain. Understandable. His good trait is Nimble, and if I understood it correctly, I think it makes him wake up a lot sooner than other employees when he falls asleep. His bad trait, ironically, is Boring, which makes him stop working and start rambling. Every worker that gets close to him will end up falling asleep. Since you can't move him, you'll have to move the other people away from him and to other floors in order to prevent them from falling asleep. Doomzap Lecris. Where do these people even find these names? Anyways, he's an editor who is a master of disguises and has seen so many things. What things are these, Chris? When asked what the best thing he has seen is, he smiles and then runs away. I bet it was naked people. His good trait is great hair, and what happens when this triggers is his hair starts shining and every sleeping employee he passes will wake up. I'm not making this up, that's really what it does. And his bad trait is just like Tommy Gogo, Angry. As for the other employees that you'll later unlock, I unfortunately cannot tell you much about them because as I've said, I can no longer access the game. However, you can find the whole cast at the start. If I remember correctly, this guy has great hair but also has the Boring trait, which is funny because he could be waking everyone up with his great hair and suddenly start rambling and making people fall asleep immediately after. This girl increases experience points, but also has the Cursed bad trait. As for these two ladies, I was actually able to get more info about them in Nekomata's Games press kit. The girl in pink is Valoria Cupcake and is actually the first new employee that you will unlock. She is a director that is skilled at hunting, fishing, and ice road truck driving. She was selected as mayor at age 14 and won the internet at age 21. I have no idea how one would win the internet, but if all this is true, I think you're overqualified, ma'am. Especially when your salary is only like, what, $1,120 per movie? I think she should be able to make her own movie studio. Then again, maybe she's broke, I don't know. Her good trait is cupcakes and she feeds these to all her co-workers on the floor she is in, making them work faster for a period of time. The best way to utilize this is to have Valoria move from floor to floor or bring everyone to where she is so that everyone can get the cupcakes effect. Her bad trait, like Biff Oslo, is Cursed. The lady with brown hair is Diana Sandstorm. Is that a reference to the rude sandstorm? She is a sound editor who likes to send postcards to remote places of the world, and those remote places like that. Her good trait is Aura Magnet, which causes other employees to have auras of the same color as the floor she is in. You can potentially have her get multiple rooms' auras before her Aura Magnet fades off. You just have to be quick about it. Her bad trait, like the previous girl, is also cursed. There's a concerning amount of cursed people in the studio, and I don't know how to feel about it. This game is absolutely cute and wonderful. It has a quirkiness to it that's just resonates with me. From the wacky visuals, odd names, and descriptions to the small details that people might miss. I don't actually know how many people bother to read the tiny text on the cards or if they can actually read it, because most people on the iPhone might have had a hard time since it's a tiny screen and all, and people watching the videos will not be able to make out the words. So I'll read some of the ones that I can make out from the press kit to you guys. Actor information: piece of square paper with round corners. Pixely People Making Movies reserves the right to be awesome and give everyone a hug every now and then. In a slightly awkward way because hugs are nice. Issued by the official Personal Stats Card Institute of Cards. Expires 2051. When a film is made, it is like all the stars in the sky dance at the dance of the magic. What? Who will see their jumps and who will feel the saltiness of their tears? But soft what light through yonder window breaks. It is the east, and Flippy is the sun. Arise, fair Mr. Spankies. It was Spandex, not Spankies. Arise, fair Mr. Spandex, and kill the envious moon who is not as cool. A wise being once said that if everything is as cute as a little bunny rabbit, things are kind of okay. The being's stance on rats are unknown as of this writing. Pixely People Making Movies does encourage a viewer of this card to have a good time. When choosing a person to come work for you, remember that small animals are cute, even rats. But to be honest, I think we all know that rats are not small enough. Another very quirky aspect to this game are the randomly generated movie reviews. If you're a fan of Flippy Spandex, you will love this movie, The Plaza Gazette. Thought-provoking, The Teak Times. It has its moments. One example, the song in Baghdad, Hot Films Weekly. Night in the Dark is more shocking than thrilling, and I like it. The Plaza Gazette. This is not horror, it's sadism. Hot Films Weekly. It starts from the forest and ends up beneath the towers. Entertaining. Vanderlei Parilla. One thing I noticed later on was the fact that the small cat during the tutorial was actually a nekomata, a two-tailed cat yokai from Japanese folklore, and is based off of their company logo. The gameplay might not be the most complex out there and it could get repetitive, but it was challenging enough to get me to spend an ungodly amount of time just trying to get 10 stars in all movie genres, but not so unforgiving that I throw my phone and rage quit. It's actually a decent game to play when you're taking a short break from work or waiting for something. The art is extremely adorable and iconic. According to their press release, the unique characters in the game were actually based off of their family and friends. You can even see how they drew some of it in their YouTube channel, which is still up at the time of recording this. The characters are drawn in a style that you don't normally see from most games that use pixel art graphics. From backgrounds, sprites, and UI, everything just fits together. Even some parts of the graphics that aren't in pixel art, which is honestly a slippery slope. You gotta know what you're doing and make it work. And they made it look like it was meant to be together. And let's not forget the sound design and music. According to their press release on their website, Stefan's brother Alrik Ostrom was the one who created all the music in the game. It fits the graphics to a T and is honestly a bop. Each one I've listened to has the ability to hype you up and get your adrenaline rushing. Each song usually starts in a medium-paced tempo and gradually gets faster the closer you are to the end of the round, signaling you to how much time you have left even without looking at the timer. It really makes me sad that a game like this that was both fun, challenging, and original is now unavailable anywhere. I actually still have this game on my phone, but it was offloaded. Whenever I try to re-download it now or play it back then, it will tell me that the developers need to update it. But as I've said, the developers are no longer active as Nekomata Games, and the main pages relating to the game have already been removed. This is actually one of the things I realized about iPhone and iPad games. If they aren't updated or were pulled from the store, there's no way to obtain them anymore. I don't think even the pirates can get it. But of course, with a game like this, I couldn't help but be a little curious about the developers of the game. Nekomata Games never released a game before or after Pixely People Making Movies, so I thought about checking the individual members. Which is not that difficult considering they only comprise of Linnea Lofdahl as the coder and Stefan Alstrom as the artist. According to Moby Games, both of them worked on a third-person shooter called Lead and Gold: Gangs of the Wild West, which was published in 2010 on Windows before Pixely People. A very stark contrast to the type of game they ended up creating together. If you check out Stefan's list, which is a pretty impressive one, hello Warhammer, each one of them have no similarities to the art style, gameplay, theme, or even the platform of Pixely People. They were basically doing something different from what they knew, something outside their comfort zone, and in my opinion, they absolutely nailed it. I know some people may not think much about the games they play, and in many cases I am the same, but there are just some wonderful gems out there that often gets ignored or forgotten. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a small creator or a not so well-known title for that to happen. Some games that were popular in the past could also get buried by the new, shiny, and exciting games that get published in the present. So as a way to preserve that memory and the many others that I'll be covering in the future, I've decided to make videos like this every now and then that talks about the games in detail along with some memories attached to them. Even if I can never play the game again, having this kind of video may inspire other people to pick up some of their concepts and use them as inspiration for their own games. Although I have to warn you that some games I'll be covering in this series and other series in the future aren't necessarily amazing, but is interesting and memorable to me. So guys, if there is a game that you really love, I urge you guys not to hesitate to post videos of its gameplay, because you'll never know how long it would be around, especially since technology is constantly upgrading. There are so many games that I really love that I just can't play anymore. I know this is very different from my usual content, but if you enjoy this kind of video, click that like button and watch out for the next one. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end of the video. Till then, I'm just gonna go do my thing and you guys do your thing, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy and stay cheesy.